Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our free Healthy at Work webinar series. My name is Jyoti Judgy. I'm a Health Promotion Specialist from the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit in the Comprehensive Workplace Wellness Department. I'll be today's moderator to help field any questions. Just before we begin, we just have a few housekeeping items to cover. So first, audio. Before we start, if you are having any difficulty hearing me, please double check your volume on your speaker is turned up. Questions. You can pose questions as you are listening, and our presenter will answer at the end of the presentation. If we cannot get to all of them today, we will send a link to all of the questions and answers to everyone later on in the week. And after the webinar, we will also send out a link to a recording of the webinar. A short feedback survey will also be included at that time. So now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Melissa Statham. Melissa Statham is an ergonomist with the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers. She graduated with a master's degree in human kinetics from the University of Windsor and is a Canadian certified professional ergonomist. At OHCOW, Melissa is involved in providing an expert opinion on the presence of ergonomic hazards in workers' WSIB files and providing ergonomic education to a variety of industries. So we thank Melissa for speaking with us today about how the use of new technology has impacted the workplace, our homes, and how we learn. I will now pass the mic over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Jody. And I'd like to thank the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit for inviting me to speak today. Again, I'm Melissa Statham from the OHCOW, and I'm an ergonomist there. Just a brief presentation overview. I'm going to go through what OHCOW is and the services that we provide to the province of Ontario. Some statistics with regards to internet usage and the changes. The challenges that new technology presents to us, not only just within our everyday lives, but the workplace, as well as the education system, the musculoskeletal disorders that we're seeing, as well as some solutions and what you can do. And at the end, I will take any questions. So OHCOW, or Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers, is a health and safety association, and we're funded underneath the prevention section of the Ministry of Labour. OHCOW is a unique service in that we're the only health and safety association that is a free service. We assist vulnerable workers, high hazards in the workplace, small companies, and non-for-profit organizations. We typically get referrals from healthcare professionals, joint health and safety committees, and advocates of the workers and the workers themselves. So OHCOW is a multidisciplinary team. I should tell you the location in Windsor is located directly behind Devonshire Mall. We're a team of 2 physicians at this location, an occupational health nurse, occupational hygienist, 2 ergonomists, our administration staff, as well as our executive director. And what we do at OHCOW is we assist individual workers. We look at WSIB files that have been denied and provide an expert opinion on them, whether it be ergonomic related or something to do with hygiene. We look at the epidemiology in the literature and see if the hazards are there to support the claim. We do group evaluations, we take telephone inquiries and provide any information that you may be of assistance to you in your workplace, of any concerns you may have. We also go out to work sites and we do some education. For ergonomics in particular, we do a lot of office education, but we can tailor anything to the needs of the workplace. And we're also involved with different community groups in doing some research as well. There are 7 clinics throughout Ontario. The newest one was just opened in Ottawa. We also have a clinic in Thunder Bay, Sudbury, Toronto, Hamilton, Sarnia, and Windsor. And now to get started on the topic for today, internet use. Internet use has drastically changed since 1995, and this chart here only goes to 2011. But you see in 1995, when internet came in, we only had about 14% of users 18 plus actually accessing the internet. In 2011, you see it almost getting to 80%. I would be so inclined to say that we would probably be over 90% when you think of how much we use internet in our daily lives now, whether we're accessing online banking, we're at school, we're at work checking our emails. We typically access the internet every day. The links on some of my slides will not work just because of the bandwidth, but this was just more of a humorous video showing that dial-up connection that we all used to painfully listen to and then it not connect and then try to do it again. And just to, how far we've come now, if we don't have internet, within seconds, we're instantly agitated. So internet use in Canada. Canadian internet now, we see a shift from desktop internet to more mobile devices. I know at my house we have a desktop computer, but it's pretty much taking up, picking up dust in between the two iPads, laptop, and any of our cell phones that we have of use. So it's kind of more, you see it prevalent in the workplace now than in the home. Currently, 3 out of 4 Canadians own smartphones, and 49% of the time online is spent on these mobile devices. Social media seems to still be the top activity performed on portable devices, and tablets now have overtaken desktop computers for the gamers. Gamers were kind of those last people standing because the supports they required on tablets were not there, but now they have succumbed to the tablets. And Ericsson Mobility in 2014 has predicted there could be as many as 5.6 billion smartphone subscriptions globally by the end of 2019. 1.3 million Canadians use mobile devices currently to access the internet. So when you think of yourself too and how you access the internet, I know typically other than at work, I am usually on my cell phone. So when we're talking about new technology, what are we talking about? We're talking about laptops. Even though laptops may seem like something that's been around for a while, we're seeing them more and more in the workplace now because people want to have that mobility and have their files right with them, whether they're in meetings or offsite locations. We're talking about tablets and also any type of Android device or cell phone. So some laptop statistics. So the price gap used to be the main thing where people were going towards desktop computers. I know when I went to university, I had the choice between a desktop and a laptop, and $500 was a pretty big decision breaker for me, and I went for a desktop computer. But now that gap is pretty much closed, and you see people wanting to get more laptops other than at the workplace where you still see more to a certain extent, you have at least the external monitor there, whether the laptop is primary or not. 68% of laptop usage is in the workplace. So you want that mobility. Sometimes workstations tend to be a bit smaller space, and a laptop could take up less room than a desktop computer. And you want to have that ability for the work-life balance and to be able to work from home. So you're seeing workplaces go towards the laptop to allow this balance that so many of us want to have. A lot of laptops now are incorporating a touchscreen component to them, so they're almost like a hybrid. So that's adding another complexity when it comes to talking about injuries as well. So tablet and smartphone statistics. Currently, 2/3 of Canadians own a smartphone. In 2014, 49% of Canadians owned a tablet, which is up 10% from 2013. 28.8 million Canadians are wireless subscribers, and more Canadians now own cell phones than landlines. Landlines are almost becoming something of the past. I know a lot of people that are getting rid of their landlines and just going to their cell phones because your cell phones are always on you. For myself, we still have a landline only because it was cheaper to have the landline than not to have the landline, but you're seeing a lot of people just solely relying now on their cell phones as their main communication. Canadians now are consuming more data. So each person on average is consuming approximately 1 gig per month. And this is a bit of an alarming statistic because when you think of it, our cell phones, that's just the data we're using that our plan provides. So when we're on wireless, that's not actually come into factor. We're probably beyond that 1 gig. Me not being so technically savvy, I wanted to know what 1 gig really meant in a month. So this is what it kind of breaks down to. You can surf the internet for 44 hours. You can go on Facebook for 51 hours, watch approximately 68 YouTube videos, send over 34,000 emails, access Google Maps for 17 hours, Skype for 4 hours, and listen to 256 tracks on Spotify. All that seems like a lot, but like I said, when you think of it over a course of the month and how many hours that would allot per day using these different types of data usages, it really isn't that much. So it's a good thing we have Wi-Fi to tap into. When we're looking at the tablet and how it's been used in the workplace, I found this interesting, and it was from Apple CEO Tim Cook in 2012. And he said that through the last quarter, which he was talking about quarter 1 of 2012, I should say, which is just 2 years after we shipped the initial iPad, we've sold 67 million. And to put that into some context, it took us 24 years to sell that many Macs, 5 years for that many iPods, and over 3 years for that many iPhones. So the rise of the tablet is there. I would have guessed before I saw this that the cell phone would have been something that was, escalating at a faster rate, but it is the tablet. So why are some workplaces going towards the tablet and why are some not? So you see those places that want the mobility. So they want the freedom of being able to go out into the field. It's lightweight, it's easy to carry even compared to a laptop, and it's easy to use. And a lot of industries now are having specialized apps for them. And so then when you have a tablet, you can access these apps much easier. Another sales teams are the ones that typically like using iPads as well. Reasons for not using the iPad: security reasons. So you have breaches of any type of your files that people can get into. But that being said, people can still do that whether you're on a tablet or not. Also, the cost of tablets were higher. That, again, is something that is coming down in price as well. Your backup, and also you need management. You need IT to be able to then be able, if these devices go down, to then be able to fix them as well. So it's having more manpower required. So the rise of the tablet in the workplace. So in 2011, we saw 13.6 million tablets used in the workplace. Fast forward 5 years from then, we had 96.3 million units. So there's been quite a jump in how many tablets we're seeing in the workplace. Also before, it was more senior level executives that seemed to have that. Now we're seeing more of the frontline employees having tablets to do the work on, again, and be more mobile. So what is the tablet used for at work and at home? So at work, you have 73% of the time it's being used for some type of web browsing, 69% of the time for email, 67% of the time you're working remotely, so you need to access the files in your online system. At home, again, 78% web browsing, 74% email, and then 84% gaming. So some of the sectors that we've been impacted by the use of tablets, and this is as of 2012, so I'm sure there's been more industries that have gotten on board with them, and probably the use within these industries have increased. So education, healthcare, retail, government, industrial, financial services, technological services, legal, energy, and hospitality are among the top industries that have gotten on board this tablet phase. And I don't really think it's a phase. I think it's something that you're going to see more and more industries leaning on. So a study looked at tablets devices in the UK and Europe, and they actually seem to be using them quite more frequently than we do. So they're the only device used by 40% of the working population in the UK, France, and Germany. So the number of workers using these tablets as standalone devices in these countries is rising. And why it's rising is because there's an increased push to be mobile and the convenience of them. So, and I think we can see our area in North America heading in that direction as well. And we also have what's known as hybrids that are becoming more and more viable as an alternative to tablets and laptops. And that just allows you basically to use the computer as a tablet or use it as a laptop. So we're seeing all this, and what are the implications to the workplace? What are the implications to our health? So back when they first had one of the first computers, which there's a picture of it there, one of the main complaints as far as injuries go and discomfort at work is that a keyboard was attached to the monitor. So now we fast forward how many years since then, and we're doing exactly that. The keyboards are on these monitors, so the keyboards are on the actual screen of the tablet and on our phones. So what it's doing is getting us in these poor postures, which then is leading to musculoskeletal disorders. The good thing about tablets is you can move around more, and as ergonomists, we like movement. We don't want you to stand too long. We don't want you to sit too long. Being dynamic in your workday is healthy. It promotes good blood flow, gets different postures. But with that, tablets are being used more, but we're using them and they're causing higher strain on our neck, shoulder muscles compared to desktop users. And it's just because when you think of it, a tablet or a cell phone, it's such a much smaller screen. So the postures we're actually getting into using them are awkward. We can't maintain that neutral posture we want to see when using a keyboard, and our neck posture is looking straight ahead of a monitor. These devices are so much smaller and often aren't accompanied with the equipment to put them in a better position to allow us to maintain those neutral postures. So when looking at the workplace, there should be some type of ergonomic program set up if you have employees using these devices all of the time. So you need to monitor your employees and see how much time is spent on these types of devices on-site and off-site in meetings, and see if they would require and benefit from proper setup. If these devices aren't being used, like they're minimally used throughout the day, it might not be as big of an issue. But in these diagrams here, it's showing somewhat of a home office. I think often a lot of workplaces we have this work-life balance that we want to maintain, and it's a great benefit to be able to go home and work from there. But setting your laptop up and using them like this on the dining room table, sitting on chairs that aren't necessarily an office type chair providing the support you need, is going to lead to musculoskeletal disorders. So we need to make sure not only that our office at work is set up properly, but our mobile office is set up properly as well. This is where I think we're going to see a lot of implications, and it's our younger generation, because they're growing up in all of this technology. I think back to 1995, and I was in school at that time, and there was none of this technology. And so, it was kind of, although we use pen and paper type things, and a lot of people will argue the same posture, you writing down on a book or reading a book is the same posture as using these technological devices. So how come we're seeing this increase? But what is really happening is that they're still doing those pen and paper tasks, and they're still using books to read, and then you're adding this on to it. So it's the cumulative effect of everything that they're doing now is requiring these postures. So the interaction with these devices is based on our human body movement. We're seeing a rise in the musculoskeletal disorders. We're having neck and shoulder pain is more prominent with using these smaller devices, just because of the sheer postures that you need to get in to use them. And we're not taking into account proper position of these when we're using them for long-term duration. So we're not putting them on any type of stand. Often in the classroom, you'll see them flat on the desktop. And that's what we're talking about. It's those postures that they're getting into that can potentially lead to permanent damage and lifelong neck pain. So again, the younger generation uses these devices more frequently. They can lead to permanent damage, and when looking at college students, they found that if they had high smartphone usage, they were more likely to experience impaired hand function and thumb pain. And like I said, we're seeing this technology increasingly from kindergarten to grade 12. I know my daughter's senior kindergarten class, they wheel the iPads in on carts and they use it, and I do think they're a valuable learning tool. They provide that feedback, that interaction that kids love. It's just that they're being set up exactly like this picture shows you. They're being flat on the desktop and kids are hunched over around them. And this, because they're in key periods of their skeletal growth, it can really have a big impact on them. So there was a study that looked at musculoskeletal discomfort associated with children using laptop computers, and it associated with poor posture. And what was alarming about this is that they found that 26% of the children reported that they had some type of discomfort, but regardless of this discomfort, they just kept on going. So they're working through this pain and this discomfort, and at that point, you're going to potentially have some type of, some damage, some ligaments are being stretched, some type of injury could be developing if you're already feeling that pain sensation. So we need to have considerations for the typing postures, keyboard heights, and workstation setups, and currently they aren't being considered. So, and again, children are being exposed to these poor postures at a young age, which is, can affect their growth. There was another study that looked at the younger generation. They looked at about 5.5-year-olds, and they compared tablet use, desktop computer use, and paper and pen tasks. What they did is they measured 3D muscle activity around the neck and shoulder. What they found was that tablets were associated with more neck and trunk flexion, more flexed and elevated shoulders, and greater muscle activity around the neck, which makes sense. When you look at this picture again, typically when you think of a student at a desk, it's raised up, it's put, the tablet's already higher than it should be, and then they are then elevated on top of it and looking straight down. So we really, I feel like this is an industry education that we really need to tap into and have them, get on board and look at the proper postures and positioning of these items when children are using them for long-term use. I know it was just not too long ago that smart boards were introduced. Now we're seeing all of these, I don't know if computer labs are a thing of the past, but I almost think that they are a thing of the past, and everything is more mobile, so it's brought to the classroom. So we really need to look at how these items are set up. So musculoskeletal disorders, where are we seeing them? We're seeing them in the neck, back, wrist. We're also seeing them in the elbow and in the shoulder area. The musculoskeletal disorders related to cell phone and tablet use are on the rise, and it's because we have increased time spent on these devices. We're, again, in awkward postures, the mechanical pressures that are at work, force exertion, and the repeated loading and duration of the loading, because now we're using them for longer than they were intended to be used. Most of the reports are in the upper extremities as far as pain goes. And some of the common musculoskeletal disorders that we're seeing related to new technology is blackberry thumb, or it's called de Quervian's Tenosynovitis, pec neck or eye hunch, cell phone elbow, which is cubital tunnel syndrome, eye strain, back pain, and carpal tunnel syndrome. So specific areas of discomfort, you have your thumb, which is responsible for 50% of the hand's function. But we're performing now excessive movements with the thumb, and we're using our thumbs the way they were never intended to be used. Our neck, all these devices are requiring us to look down and have neck flexion for long periods of time, which can lead to fatigue and discomfort. Our elbows, again, we're having them statically flexed, which is going to cause nerve compression. Shoulder, we're reaching out to touch the screens of these devices, and we're also supporting these devices with one of our hands too. So it's not only the hand that's doing the work, but if there's also a hand that's supporting a device, that also can be susceptible to musculoskeletal disorders. Also, the back is a direct result of any of these postures. When you think as soon as your neck is flexed, then no longer is your back maintaining that natural curvature. So just to go into a little bit of detail from each of those disorders, de Quervian's Tenosynovitis is the inflammation of the tendons that connect the thumb to the wrist. Again, our thumbs are not being used the way they were designed for. We're now performing forceful, repetitive motions with them, and really what they were designed for is to stabilize objects. So now, we're texting, we're moving them all across the screen, and that's not what our thumbs were originally there for. So the symptoms that you can occur because of this, we can have painful snapping when bending the thumb, tenderness, pain, tingling, and even a loss of sensation or strain. They can treat it, so good news. But anti-inflammatories, heat and cold packs, braces, physical therapy, or steroid injections, or even surgery. But the idea is to avoid these types of conditions and get into a better posture and be more proactive when using these devices. Eye hunch or text neck is probably one of the most common ones any literature is out there on, and research and statistics. So musculoskeletal disorders are relating to looking down at the tablets and cell phones compared to other, even the desktop computers. What it's doing is it's putting strain on our neck muscles. It increases 3 to 5 times when using a tablet compared to sitting with our head in neutral position. So the neck positions increase mechanical loads on our neck. So this graph over here, diagram rather, is showing that the average human head weighs between 10 to 12 pounds. So even when you're in neutral position, that's the amount of force that's acting on the cervical vertebrae. So now even when we shift our neck down even 15 degrees, that force increases to 27 pounds. So think of how your neck is positioned when you're texting. If you're already on the far right at 60 degrees, that's 60 pounds of pressure and force being put on those small cervical vertebrae. So again, it increases the force on the cervical spine, and typically most people are in a posture of 45 degrees when texting. So this is 49 pounds of force on those cervical vertebrae. So what it's doing is stretching the tissue for long periods of time. It causes them to get sore, inflamed, and lead to pinched nerves, muscle strain, herniated disc, and it can even change the natural curvature of your neck if done for too long. Back pain. Back pain also is a result of like the neck as well, because as soon as your neck is flexed, then you're no longer maintaining that curvature that you need to in order to help not get a musculoskeletal disorder. So the upper back is typically where you see most of them, and that's a direct result of looking down at these devices. Poor posture while sitting or standing can affect all of the areas of the back. That's why, even when you're sitting, you should be sitting on a chair that's providing you lumbar support. And, even laying down at night when you're on your cell phone, I think of that, and I usually have it right up to my eye. So that's, you don't want to. Your neck fatigues pretty fast, and you're pretty aware of when it starts to hurt, and you do change positions. The pain can range from chronic nagging pain to a sharp, severe upper back muscle spasms. So cell phone elbow or cubital tunnel syndrome. So the cause of this is when you're either leaning on your elbow too much, it's flexed, you're up talking on your phone, you're typing with your arms bent at 90 degrees, and often because these tablets and everything are smaller, you're even in further and that flexion is higher than if you're using a keyboard. So you have prolonged flexion of the elbow and the ulnar nerve gets pinched. So the symptoms that you may have are numbness and tingling and pain, and it can worsen to fatigue, weakness, difficulty gripping, curling of the pinky, and the ring finger. Carpal tunnel syndrome is that compression of that median nerve. A lot of you have probably heard of this. It's caused by repetitive motions, and when you're in these non-neutral postures, it's putting even more pressure on that median nerve. Excessive force, forceful, and prolonged gripping. So even gripping that iPad to hold on to it is a risk factor for carpal tunnel syndrome. So you had the tingling and numbness and reduced grip strength. Again, this can be treated with a physiotherapy, a carpal tunnel release surgery, but the idea is to be proactive and use these items in a safe way that it doesn't get to this point. Eye strain, also known as computer vision syndrome, this is something that affects about 50 to 90% of computer, tablet, and smartphone users. And what happens is we tend to hold these devices closer to our eyes than actual books. So our eyes are constantly need to refocus and they need to work harder. We tend to blink less when using these devices as well. So usually blink about 18 times a minute. When we use a computer or a tablet or smartphone, we're actually blinking half this much. So we're not getting the lubrication of the eyes we need. So symptoms then we get that as dry, itchy, burning, blurred vision in our eyes. So this is something that we need to take into account as well when using these devices. So cell phone screen size, I found this interesting. Again, this is another link. We can't really run it through here, but you can copy it down if you want to. And some of you may be familiar with it. So when looking at cell phone screen size, Apple actually, when they unveiled their iPhone SE, they found that it was the first 4-inch smartphone since 2013. And what the company said is that this is a light, compact phone, and it's designed to fit comfortably in your hand. Steve Jobs was famously believed that phones should match the ergonomics of your hand. So in 2010, as their competitors were selling larger devices, he mocked them and he said, "You can't get your hand around it, so no one's going to buy it." So obviously we know that isn't true because the consumer keeps on wanting bigger screens, and obviously that's the way the iPhones have gone to now. But it's interesting to see that that was even considered at that point. And the commercial just kind of shows that, your thumb can go from here to there, and, this makes perfect sense. So it was interesting to see that they did consider it at one time. So if you're one of those people that are looking at cell phone screen size, what should you actually consider? What you can see is the first thing, what your thumbs can actually physically reach on the phone, because typically a lot of times we're using these devices with one hand. And what can you comfortably hold in your hands? So this is just looking at hand size, and the average woman and average man are on the far left there, and these are the sizes that your hand would need to be according to certain phone sizes. So one from the far right is the iPhone 6 Plus. So even Shaquille O'Neal, whose hand is directly beside it, would not be large enough to actually grip the iPhone 6 Plus. So it's interesting to see that they're designing phones that actually don't even fit into the average person's hand. When looking at cell phone screen size, this just shows the iPhone 6 and Galaxy S5 and what the average woman and man can reach. The red areas are the areas that the thumb cannot reach at all, and the yellow areas which you can outstretch to reach, and then the green areas is what you can comfortably reach with that your thumb on that phone. When looking at the screen size for the 6 Plus and Galaxy Note 4, these regions become smaller as far as there's only a small section that you can actually reach with your thumb. The red sections at the far corners you cannot reach at all, and this has grown because, again, the screen size is larger than the iPhone 6. So what is the optimal grip when we're looking at cell phones? So your optimal grip span is 4.5 to 9.5 centimeters. So static muscle contraction can lead to localized muscle fatigue. So holding this phone in your hand for too long is what we're talking about here. A study found that smartphone overuse can actually enlarge the median nerve, which is going to cause pain in the thumb, decrease pinch strength, hand function, your grip strength, and even that's a risk factor for carpal tunnel syndrome. So what are some of the solutions then if we're using these cell phones all the time? What can we do? Well, we can learn how to use them better. They're called smartphones for a reason. So there are some features within them that are ergonomically sound and will allow us to put things more in the comfort of our reach and use features that we don't necessarily need to be pushing the buttons all the time. So there's Bluetooth headsets. So the headsets would eliminate the need to actually hold the phone to your head, having to type the text out. You could then use your voice for texting. You can make an effort to bring the phones actually closer to the eye level, so then you're maintaining those neutral postures of the neck and not flexing your head down. Get to know the voice-activated features of your phone so you can take your eyes off the phone. Your earbuds typically come with all cell phones now, and you can plug those earbuds in and you can take phone calls through using them. Again, then you don't have to hold the phone up to your ear when you're doing it. And those voice activation features are really critical into making it more hands-free. And you want to do some neck and shoulder exercises to keep your neck mobile if you notice that you're using these all the time. So I went through a few of the shortcuts that you can use for a few different smartphones. So iPhone has a feature that you can actually bring the apps down to half of the screen. So if you tap the home button, don't push it, but if you tap it twice, all of your apps come down to half of the screen. So that then your thumb is closer to these. You're not having to reach those outliers. Night shift is one for that computer vision syndrome. So it's a filter that you can put onto the phone on an iPhone, and you can change the brightness. So at night, you can have it be more yellow tones, and then you don't feel like you're squinting, and you can have it automatically do that every day. I have that on my phone, and I'm not quite sure how I lived without it before, because actually I never used any of these features. I was one of those people that literally I needed to get to know my iPhone, and it's smart, and it can help me out. And I did because of this topic solely, but now I'm really appreciating it. Voice activation, so that's how you would get to your voice activations, and Siri can help you do all of that kind of stuff as far as, Siri, call this person. You can text by talking. So when you go to text message on the microphone, it will appear, and then you can begin to talk, and it'll text everything that you're saying. I'm sure there's a few hiccups in this as far as some of the words go, but I mean, it then allows you to be hands-free and maintain better postures, especially if you're a high smartphone user. These are some of the Samsung shortcuts. So they have a feature that you can put it on actual one-handed operation, so then it allows it to be formatted better to be used with one hand. They don't have a filter like the iPhone does. You have to download a night mode app from Google Play that then you can run and decrease the brightness. And they have what's called as S-Voice, which can help you with your calls, text, and all that, and be hands-free at the same time. So some laptop solutions. So laptops, whether they're used at home or at work, either you want to have some type of a laptop riser, which is shown on the right, and what that does is it allows the screen to be placed in a better position to maintain neutral neck postures. On the docking station, you would just simply dock your laptop there, and then your monitor would be adjusted to the proper height, so again, you maintain those neutral postures. Also, you want to make sure you're using external devices, so an external mouse and an external keyboard, because a laptop keyboard and mouse, you're in those awkward postures. So this would allow you to maintain neutral postures while using this device at home, at mobile, office, or at work. So some tablet solutions. So for prolonged use of a tablet, you can sync your tablet with your desktop or laptop computer. So then these devices would be set up properly for you at your workstation. You can also use